Hello, my name is Damian Iseminger, and I am the section head of the Music Bibliographic Access Section in the Music Division at the Library of Congress. And I'm here to talk to you today on managing music cataloging in a time of pandemic. So a little bit about our background and our vitals. I have a staff of 11 catalogers and technicians, and they are responsible for the item-level cataloging and description of items in the custody of the Music Division, namely those materials classed in M, ML, and MT. We catalog notated music, books on music, manuscripts, prints and photographs, and microforms. We also do collection-level description of archival collections more fully described in finding aids. Our materials are received by a mandatory copyright deposit, via U.S. imprints, the SIP program, acquisitions, and through gifts. Let's go into a little bit more detail about regular telework at the Library of Congress. Telework is generally 1 to 2 days a week for approved staff, and a third day is at the discretion of upper management. 5 of my staff are already set up for telework. This requires library-issued equipment to access all on-site resources from home, and this includes the ILS. So we do have a materials removal policy, and this is prior to the time of the pandemic. For the general collection divisions, all materials taken home to be cataloged required a bib record in the catalog and an item record linked to it by a barcode. The music division is more restrictive because of the nature of our materials. Teleworkers have cataloged from surrogates, either using photocopies or digital photographs. So let's get to the meat of it, the pandemic. So the Library of Congress issued its first pandemic-related directive on Friday, March 13, 2020, and it stated that all employees who can work from home, regardless of prior telework policy, should do so starting on Monday, March 16, 2020. Supervisors, and that would be me, are instructed to find work that can be accomplished remotely, even without library-issued equipment. Procedures were put in place on Monday, March 16th for self-certification of high-risk status. Those at high risk who can telework will do so, and those whose jobs are not amenable to telework are placed on paid administrative leave. Later directives require supervisors to define telework for those initially placed on paid administrative leave. So that's the background. So let's talk about flexibility. So no telework equipment, no problem. So in these times, we have to think about cataloging outside the box. So in a meeting with my staff, the non-telework staff brainstormed alternative cataloging methods that did not involve using the Voyager ILS. And what we came up with is that the OCLC Connection web client and MarcEdit could be used as ways to catalog at home, and we could put these things into the ILS later. So to go briefly over this, Connection worked for those who had cataloged in OCLC prior to coming to LC. But there are several downsides. Because of how LC and OCLC interact, we can't add our records directly to OCLC. And we found out that saved records in Connection cannot be exported to MARC files without first being in the WorldCat database. So we will need to develop processes to get these records out of save files and into MARC forms. A little more successful was MarcEdit, and that generally worked for those who had not had experience cataloging in Connection. The mnemonics used in MarcEdit are fairly easy to understand. In fact, some people used Word or another text editor to create files of records using the MarcEdit mnemonics and then pasted those into MarcEdit. So the upside of this is that the MARC files generated by MarcEdit are easily loaded into Voyager. Another strategy we came up with was a focus on professional development. So some library resources are available through a virtual private network using two-factor authentications, and this includes access to many trainings and ebooks. Popular trainings included modules on Microsoft Office products. There were also many webinars offered by professional organizations, and these were particularly useful in the early days of the pandemic. And I especially like to give a shout out to the New England Music Library Association for their excellent meeting that they held over Zoom. And one of the other ways we've done professional development is I've had people read up on their standards. So I've asked people to go read the library resource model, or also known as IFLA LRM. Have people look through the Beta RDA toolkit, and finally, to read things on the web related to linked open data. I've also worked hard to create flexibility for my staff. So one of the things is we've worked towards relaxing restrictions as far as taking materials out of the building. So in working with Reader Services, another section within the music division, we relaxed restrictions on the loan of music division materials. So we came to the accommodation that unbound music may be checked out as long as it's properly protected. For example, put into a sheet music box. We also took the time to look at various back burner projects, things that we had set aside as not having enough time for. Well, guess what? We have enough time now. So we have done a lot of database cleanup. There's lots of, you've probably seen it in the LC catalog from old catalog headings. And these are being cleaned up. There's many to clean up, but they're being cleaned up nonetheless. We've also taken the time to do some documentation revision. And another important part of providing flexibility while we're at home are to provide people with non-cataloging projects. The music division has a concert office, and the concert office has been great in offering work to people. So several of my people have taken advantage of that and have written concert program notes. They've written concert blurbs, and they've also done quality assurance review of old concert videos. But the thing I want to stress the most is I want to talk about humanity. And I think this is the most important part of the pandemic. Yes, it's nice finding work for everyone, but we need to remember everybody's humanity in what we are doing. So the first thing I want to stress to you is that music cataloging is not important. Music cataloging is not important, but music catalogers are important. And from that, we have what I consider to be two general principles. You are not a music cataloging supervisor. You are a leader of human beings. You are not responsible for music cataloging. You are responsible for human beings. And I want to go into probably the most important part of how do you manage this humanity. So the first part of our humanity is staying safe. And I want to encourage you to do not wait. So I strongly encouraged my high-risk teleworkers to prepare work for at least a month and stay home prior to any official announcements from the Library of Congress. When it's your life of your people we're talking about, you do not need to wait for upper management. For my on-site workers, we didn't know how this long would last. It only lasted a week, but I did several things to help ensure their safety a little bit better. One of those was the relaxation of food and drink policies. This allowed them to eat at their desk during breaks and to stay away from the public and coworkers in the cafeteria. I also instituted mandatory social distancing, and I forbade people from entering another person's cubicle without permission. Sanitation. Whenever possible, I provided hands-free access to work areas. There is one automatic door into the music division that only staff can use. So then in the interior of the division, I opened doors to make sure people were not handling doorknobs. And finally, I stressed physical wellness. If you felt at all under the weather, I basically told people not to come in, even if they weren't COVID-like symptoms, just don't come in. The next part we need to be human about is staying connected. So I set up individual meetings. These were one-on-one weekly meetings either over Skype for Business or WebEx for those people who did not have access to library computers. So we did discuss work, but these things were more important for talking about how people were doing. And this is especially important for those who are by themselves or for people that are high risk. They need to know that people care about them. So my meetings, once scheduled every week, have started to become every other week, but I still keep my calendar blocked out for an every week meeting. We've also had staff meetings online. These have been every 2 weeks or once a month, depending on what's going on. And really, reconnection is the most important topic. I have people talk about what they've been working on or things that they've been doing in their house or their apartment. It's just good to be able to talk to other people and hear people's responses. And finally, we need to stay real. And this is one of my favorite quotes from the pandemic, and it comes from Canada Parks in an email that they sent out to their staff. They said, "You are not working from home. You are at your home during a crisis trying to work." I think that's very important to keep in mind in everything that we do during this pandemic and in how we give work out, is that yes, getting work done is important, but in the grand scheme of things, it pales in comparison to our staff and their needs. So, in part of staying real, acknowledge your team's fears and let yourself be vulnerable. I've had many people express them being scared about what's going on and what's going to happen. And don't wash over that. Say, yeah, I hear you. And I'm scared too. And they will appreciate you for that. So I want to thank you for the time that you've taken to watch this screencast. And I hope you have found this presentation helpful from a management perspective. So I thank you for your time and have a good rest of your day or evening, whatever it may be. Thanks.